Hello and welcome back to the Beauty Way. It's so beautiful to be back. Today we have a very special guest and a very dear friend of mine who we have connected over the past, it's probably been like 6 years now. And so today we have Mel Garrity. Mel and I connected through a mutual container that we were doing at the time, and we got to co-create in that way for a little bit of time. And I have seen, wow, like I just had a picture of who Mel was to me when we first met, and who you are now, like has been such an incredible thing to witness in the transformation of your being and of your becoming and who you represent and who you are now. And that's such a wild flash. And it's so interesting when we know people for a long time and see their transformation to witness that. And it actually, there's a lot of energy as I say that, because to witness you has been really beautiful. And so Mel is living in New Zealand. She is a mother and she is following the priestess path. And to have witnessed that with her from the sidelines has been really beautiful to witness. And we are excited to speak about and hear about the priestess initiations and the explorations that you've had. And just before we jumped on this, before we pressed record, we were talking about an experience that she had in Egypt and sharing some of the beautiful, powerful codes that she holds. And I'm really excited to jump into this conversation and to flow with all the pieces. And so welcome, Mel. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you. And I just want to express my thanks and gratitude for you and Christy inviting me on to speak about my passion, about the way I live my life, because it's not a hobby, it is a way of being. The priestess path is such a deep calling, and I feel really honored, truly, to be invited to speak about it and share my perspective. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Amazing. So when I first met Mel, she had an acupuncture clinic, and the transformation from that to this feels like quite a contrast, in the sense of like the way that you kind of express yourself, probably not really from the real essential codes of what sort of the foundational codes of how we serve and support people, but from like the how you be feels like such a difference, a varying variation of who you are. And I'm so curious if you wanted to share a little bit about what had you go from there to here.
Yeah, so I'll jump back a bit. I'm actually a qualified naturopath, medical herbalist, and it wasn't acupuncture that we did
Oh,
use
sorry.
acupuncture needles, but it was using electricity to modify the
That's
brain
right.
and the body. And I have always had like a love for medicine. I think when I was a little girl, I was always like making potions and casting spells and and so learning herbal medicine and treating patients and working with like being in service in that way was something that felt so good in my heart.
Mm.
I brought a clinic and it did really, really well. And on the side, I was always had this little hobby, which was bringing women together and creating sacred spaces and building altars and essentially like opening these portals for women to connect to the divine feminine. I don't
Mm.
think I had the same type of language to understand that that's really what I was doing. I was honestly just following my heart and being like, I want to do this. And in my area where I live, there was no one leading in that way. And so I was just like, okay, well, then I'll do it. So I was in clinical practice for a number of years and loved it. And I, I felt like I was walking in two worlds. I was very medically orientated, it was very scientific. And then I was also like super esoteric and could see energy and frequencies. And so I actually struggled a little bit to balance that. In the container that Carissa and I met at, we were both training in very advanced evolution, consciousness evolution, very advanced astral travel. And I just found this like doorway into a whole nother world and I loved it. And when COVID kind of happened, I just knew that I did not want to go back to the clinic. I knew I wanted to have another baby, so I have three children. Um, and what kind of after I had my last baby, what kind of became like a hobby, I was like, I'm just gonna jump straight into this and just like bring it to the world. And um, very luckily for me, it was received very well. And so that was in like 2022 that I really fully let go of the clinic and that kind of like medical hat. And it was, such a grieving process. And one thing that I really know about devoting to this devotional way of living and to listening to your heart and calling yourself forward is that you have to allow yourself to die and be reborn again over and over. And that really is kind of like a huge pillar of the path of the priestess, is to allow yourself to be reborn. And when I think back 6 years ago, to when we first met and how young I was, and um, to now, it's like I've died 1,000 deaths, and I'm probably going to die 1,000 more. And what I love about the priestess path and this devotional way of living and these ancient rituals and is that they give you tools. For me, they've given me tools that helped me bring the really advanced, like galactic, astral travel, multi-dimensional, like coding into my body. I really struggled with integration and embodiment. I had to go and really start a journey of like, how am I gonna actually embody this? Because I could feel it in the field, I could see it, I could sense it, but I wasn't sure how to like bring it in to me. And I guess that took me on a really incredible journey to learn rituals and um, kind of really carve out a different way, or a return of the ancient ways. And it was like, I was like, oh my God, I'm in my body. And that's when the code started to really like anchor. That's when all the higher chakra stuff really started to become embodied. And through that process, my business and my community just organically blossomed because I realized that women were really desiring to connect and embody those frequencies in the same way.
Mm. So beautiful, Mel. And I'm absolutely loving the passion that is oozing from you. It is so incredibly beautiful. And what I love is what you just said about women are almost craving this. And every single one of us who steps into it gives permission for all of those women, even if they're confronted by it, to be able to step in. And it's so beautiful that I didn't know you 6 years ago from now, but I can tell that you have embodied to such a degree. And I also love, when you spoke about, because I also trained as a herbalist and naturopath and everything. And one of the things that I used to love when I was practicing in that way was like making my potions and things.
Yeah.
And it was every time I made a potion, it was like I was bringing in aspects of my witchy self, and I was bringing that part of me into this lifetime, because that's what we're here for. Is we're here to embody all of those aspects of ourselves that have been pushed aside, that have been burned at the stake, that have just been you know rejected for so many lifetimes. And so it's so beautiful to hear your journey and how you've allowed yourself to step into it. So thank you for sharing.
Amazing.
So beautiful. And one of the things that really like highlighted to me as you were sharing about the growth of your community and your connection and all the pieces that kind of come together as you really stepped into more of this was that one of the things that I've really always admired about you is your authenticity and the way in which you are willing to be really clean and impeccable with the way that you share and the way that you express yourself, because I feel like there's a lot of performative style content out there, and it's in order to get particular reactions and to be received in particular ways and be perceived in particular ways. And one of the things that I've always absolutely loved about the way that you show up is you're just kind of like, nah, fuck all that shit. Just the complete truth of your expression. And I really value that, because it's one of my kind of things that I really value in the people that are around me, is a level of truth. And I guess really having those performative pieces kind of fall away and being in the authentic expression of who you are. And I mean, I kind of feel like you've always been like that as long as I've known you. It doesn't feel like it's a new thing. But yeah, it really was standing out, as Kirsty was saying. And it's actually funny, Kirsty, I'm realizing now, when Mel was sharing about the herbalist side, like how many people we've had on this podcast that have studied that along the way. Like there's so many. I personally didn't study naturopathy, but I did study nutrition, as you both know. And I grew up with a naturopath as a mum who did all the herbal tinctures at home. And it's so funny that that thread is so woven into so many of our connections, and that kind of historical alternate life kind of witch experience that is woven through so many of the people that are in our field. It's a really interesting factor. And so yeah, I'm really curious about what a day in the life of a devotional priestess looks like. Like, how do you bring those devotional practices into your day? And I feel like I have a little bit of an idea from witnessing what you share, but I would love to hear it from you and for our listeners.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to just go back and touch on one thing before we go forward. But the authenticity piece, it has taken training. It has taken, like, honestly, really deep work to strip away the templates of other people's identities, and I think it's really natural for actually humans to try on personalities and try on archetypes. And the truth and the frequency of truth, the frequency of authentic expression, is actually measurable scientifically, and it's a higher vibration than love. And so when they measured authenticity, they were having people speak on various things in their life, and when they were looking back on it, it was when other people were getting goosebumps, the scientists, and they were measuring, like, what is the emotion, and it was authentic expression where the mask had come down. And although, like, I've had moments in my life where I feel like I've been free, and I've been super expressive, and I've been totally confident to speak my opinion on any subject. It has taken it is an art, and I think it's so layered with empowerment, with truth, with purification, with deprogramming, with deep inner work, and it's becoming more popular, thank God, because there is a lot of performance in the spiritual leadership industry, and that too is sacred. That too has a valuable part to play. And I am noticing more and more a more diverse variety of expression come online, and that is the beauty way, that is the feminine way, is that we are so incredibly diverse, and there's unity in diversity. So can you remind me what the question was?
I love that you took us back there. I love that you took us to that point, that specific point then, because it's so true. There is so much performance that happens, particularly what you're talking about, the priestess path. And there is so much performance in the spiritual community. And so to come back to that piece that is central to us actually embodying the truth of this and who we are, is authenticity is key. And so, yeah, thank you for bringing that piece. I'll get you to ask a question again, Chris.
Yeah, well, I also wanted to reflect the value in the performance too. That it's a part of the journey, absolutely. And it offers value because it gets us to be able to feel into the truth of what resonates with us as well. And so I love that you brought that forward, Mel. I totally agree.
And can I just add as well, since you brought that piece in too, because like examples are there's some really amazing, well-known celebrity actors in the world who are very deep people. And with their performance, they're able to inspire so many people because of that. And so, but it's that authenticity lies at the core of what they're saying. So I love that you just brought in that, like those two polarities.
Totally. Okay, so the question that I asked was, what does a day in the life of a devoted priestess look like?
Yeah, cool. Great question. And I'm gonna like say what I'm gonna say, and then I'm gonna say the total opposite. So,
I wouldn't expect anything less.
literally, so yes, and basically is a great answer to everything.
Mhm.
There is no particular like way I feel that is the true way. For me, connection and devotion comes in waves. And Krista knows, I don't know if Christy knows, but I've actually recently gone through a separation. It's been 6 months, and I have not been called at all to a spiritual practice. I've been incredibly in my human. I've been tending to my children. I've been at the moment working on my nutrition because I just stopped eating because I was so sad. Um, I'm feeling like super emotional. And so a day in a life of like a devoted woman was basically just devoting to my
Mm.
holding myself,
Mm.
tending to my emotions and tending to my children. I had to move houses. I had to set back up again. I had to stop working. It was incredibly hard. And so there was no part of me that wanted to or felt truly called in my heart to be doing kriyas and mantras and rituals. I literally just stopped everything, and I let myself just be a mum. And only very recently have I felt truly the call, the surge come back up out of my heart to devote once again. And I really want to share that because I think we can get really caught up in our own head about like what we should be doing or who has the time for this. And I'm sure that on social media, there's people who wake up really early in the morning and they do this like big complex ritual and they sing to their water. And that is so beautiful. And I just like don't have time for that shit. I've got 3 kids. They all go to school in kindy. I live out in the country. I've got lunches to make, like I can't do that. And I also don't want to. I don't really like waking up super early. It's not for me. And so one thing about being devoted and connecting with the creator is knowing that the creator and in the creative frequency resides within you all the time, and you're always worthy of that regardless of what you do. We belong to that frequency, we come from that frequency, we are seen and heard and wanted and adored and loved and honored all the time by the creator. And so devotion for me is coming into a place where I would like to make offerings and exaltations to the sacred as a way of restoring harmony, as a way of giving my thanks and gratitude, and as a way that I feel deeply connected. And it will completely vary. Like, so one thing for me is I have always and for a long time always had an altar at my home. This is in my bedroom, but I have others all around the house, and occasionally I will build like a massive one in the lounge. And I have so much joy and just like delight basically about making beautiful things. And altar technology is a way that very simply you can have a portal to the divine in your home. And it's proven with quantum physics that if you sit in the same place and you meditate and pray, it creates a different frequency in the field. And so even in a small way, I might tend to my altar, put some fresh flowers, have a bowl of water, take the water that's been there, offer it to the earth or something. And in that way, that might be the only thing that I'm capable of that day to devote.
Mm.
The other thing that I do pretty regularly is I do purification rituals. So I work with a lot of different medicines like resins, myrrh, frankincense, copal, tobacco, and I'm extremely sensitive. emotionally, energetically, physically, like everything. And so working with clients and mentoring women, I use medicines to purify my field all the time. And so there's often always coals burning in my home, and using the medicines to clear the space. And that can also be devotional. I do other rituals that clear lesser energies. I do water rituals, but it really depends on how much time I have and if I feel genuinely called to be in that space. In the past, for long periods of time, I have done kriyas, which you do for like 40 days or 180 days, and they vary. And so they are also purification rituals. And at the moment, I'm devoting, or I have chosen to devote to like a rectification in my Vedic astrology chart, which is quite different to Western astrology. And you get given um, things to recite. So I have malas, and you would say a mantra. One of the mantras I need to say 28,000 times in the next 50 days. And so it's a massive commitment to practice it and to offer remedy to the gods or the cosmic forces or whatever you would like to name them. And the only reason why I've done that is because I feel like I'm ready. 3 months ago, I'd be like, no, I couldn't even watch trainings on my computer. I was just not capable. And so I would, to answer your question, a day in the life of a priestess or a devotional woman, I think simply is just to remember that we are sacred in all expressions and to give thanks and gratitude to it, no matter how small. And every day I pray for my children and for myself and for the world. That I think was ingrained into me as a child. I come from a family where prayer is like extremely normal. So I think the most powerful thing is just remembering that you're sacred. Yeah.
Totally. And, I feel like there's so many things in what you shared that I totally resonate with. Finding sacred in the mundane can sometimes be one of the hardest things that we do. But when we are in the embodiment of that, there is no have or should. It's just have to or should, I should say. There is just the simplicity of what is true and moving through me on any given day. And when you said that, I was just like, hell yes, because I am such a big believer of the same, that you being in your emotional process of your separation, you being present with your family during that process is such a part of it. Being tending to the feelings and the experience that you're having internally, tending to the feelings and the experience that I imagine your children are having in that experience. Like, the mother is such a devotion in and of
Yeah.
itself. And so I love that you started there, because it feels so absolutely true for me. And the way that you weave with what feels right and true for you in any given moment just speaks again to that authenticity of what is true, as opposed to what is should, those kinds of ways that we think we have to. Yeah.
Recognizing all aspects are sacred is such a powerful way, isn't it? And the devotion to the bad bits as well as the good bits and everything in between is such a reclamation of our soul. And the embodiment process involves all of those aspects. It involves the sadness and the pain and the fear and the suffering and all of the things. If we push any of them away, we're actually not acknowledging ourselves as creator. We're not acknowledging ourselves as sacred, and we're not allowing ourselves to be fully whole. So thank you for that description. It was very yeah, it was really holistic, and I super appreciate it.
Yeah. And I feel like one of the reasons why I've come to embody that truth is because I took the other journey. where I was like, if I don't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do this thing and immediately activate my thing and then put my shields up and then blah 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 blah. And then I was just kind of like, this is exhausting.
Mm.
Like actually I would rather just actually sleep in. That feels more nourishing for me. And I think the embodiment part that I've been really devoted to learning and co-creating with and understanding my body is like, what do you actually want?
Mm.
Like, what do you want, babe? Oh, okay. You don't want to get up in the morning? Thank God. Let's sleep in, let's get the kids sorted. Let's put some tunes on. Let's just have a cruisy morning. And when they're at school, and then when I've had a shower, and then when I've had some space, then I can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the like driving forces for me to come online, like physically with my work and not have it be just like this thing that I was passionate about, was I just wasn't seeing mothers in the leadership space. And it really bothered me because I'm just like, you can't comprehend the amount of stuff that you need to do and that you need to tend to, and then lead in business, and then create a happy marriage, and then look after your body, and then da da da. And like, they can be compassionate about it and they can hypothesize what it might feel like, but I really was just like, there needs to be mums, there needs to be grandmas, like in this space. We need some elders, like up in the leadership space, man. It's getting wobbly as fuck. And I got swept up in that pathway too, and that's how I like to learn in my soul blueprint. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I just realized that I was just desiring something that I wasn't seeing a lot.
Mm.
And so that kind of motivated me to come online and be like, if you're a mother, if you're a wife, if you're this, if you're that, all these other kind of aspects, then here are helpful, useful things that have really, been supportive for my own journey, and it was received incredibly well.
Mm. Yeah. It's so beautiful to bring those aspects to the field. And yeah, so powerful. And it's funny, the piece that you spoke to about the exhaustion of like trying to do it in a way that doesn't feel true and authentic. We spoke about this on the episode that Kirsty and I recorded that just came out over the weekend. And we talked about how the things that we're passionate about, when they're moving through us and it feels true and authentic, all of the shoulds and the musts kind of fall to the wayside, and that they're, whilst we can still feel exhausted through the different aspects of things that we are devoted to and that we are passionate about, it's a different type of exhaustion when it's coming from the shoulds and the musts versus when it's just like, okay, cool, like I am, I'm just tired of all of the things. And so, yeah, I love that you brought that piece in as well. Mm.
Yeah,
I
it
feel
becomes like
like
sorry. It
you go.
becomes like an enduring exhaustion when we're doing it from the shoulds and the musts. Whereas when we actually step out of that, yes, we get tired, but it's not an enduring exhaustion. We can find a little practice that we can devote ourselves to that can actually revitalize and regenerate, and that means we can step forward again.
That was literally exactly what I was about to say, is that coming into a place of devotion and connection, and really desiring to be in communion with the sacred, it is a never ending source of energy, of rejuvenation, revitalization. And we are so programmed to look for that outside of ourselves, with food, with alcohol, with relationships, um, and anything kind of external. And what I really recognized was that, like, when I am at my altar, when I am tending to myself in that way, I am more capable of being a mother. I'm more capable to hold greater sums of money, bigger clients, greater creation, because I'm not seeking outside of myself to be fulfilled. I'm sourcing myself. And I think a lot of mothers, especially in my work, they're so depleted. You know, they're so depleted. And the self-sacrificing mother template is just like, it will set us up to fail, because we cannot, we do, but we'll just run on exhaustion. And the priestess path and a devotional way of living and learning the art of ritual and learning the art of becoming and unbecoming and purifying your field and devoting in that way, what I have witnessed over and over and over and over and over, it is filling these women up with an infinite source of energy that they're not getting from another being, and it is changing their life. It is completely transforming who they are, because suddenly they're like, oh, I'm feeling fortified. I'm feeling strengthened. I'm feeling capable. I can hold myself, and anything I can't hold, I'm going to give to the altar. I'm going to give to God. I'm going to ritually put myself in this sacred space, and I'm going to hand it over, and I'm going to free myself from that. And it just, oh, it just covers me in goosebumps, because that has changed my life. And that is something to be really passionate about, because you know, the gym and our society is so focused on a really unattainable level of beauty, that the beauty way, the true beauty way, you know, like you've named the podcast the beauty way, and it's the same as the priestess pathway, and it's the same as the devotional way, it's the same of it's awakening and creating spaces that are more beautiful, and becoming, coming into your heart and recognizing how beautiful we are. And I look at my photos and I look at myself and I look at who I was, you know, and I look younger. I've like literally reversed aged. My body is in better shape. And it's because I'm sourcing from this infinite field of light, and I'm devoting to tending to that space, and it fills thy cup like nothing else. And I think women need that. I think we need each other. We need our circles. We need our rituals. We need our ceremonies. Um, and it just, every time, you know, I do it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, it's exactly what I needed.
Yeah. I was going to share something and it dropped away. That's what I was going to share was every single one of us that does that shifts the trajectory for our children as well. And that is super powerful, just with the intention of it. The intention of it and then the embodiment of it shifts our trajectory of, it shifts the trajectory of humanity and of Gaia.
Yeah, and a lot of like the ceremonies and particular sequences of things that are like I'm devoted to tending to, and offerings are with the intention to restore harmony. You know, one of the elders that I had learned from said that part of the reason why the earth is in so much chaos, and you know, the climate's all over the place, is because the temples are not being used anymore.
Mm.
They're not, when no one is offering anything. We live in an extractive world. What can I get out of this? What can I get out of the program? What can I get out of the podcast? How am I going to be seen here? But it's like, well, what are you giving? What are you offering? How are you being of service? How are you contributing to the web of life? Is this helpful? Is this useful? And I think we've kind of like lost the way a little bit, and making offerings and coming into devotion, and you know, like remembering the past is how we are going to co-shape the future. And every time we come into these sacred spaces and we make offerings that are genuine and true, we give good soup back, you know, good frequencies back to the lands where we reside, you know, honoring the elements, and the ancestors and the kingdoms of consciousness that are around us, that we just walk by all the time, and don't even connect to. And when you live your life in a way where you're connecting to these kingdoms of consciousness and you're making offerings, it honestly just makes you feel good. It uplifts your spirit so much. And then beautiful and amazing, wonderful, magical miracles start to happen. And I genuinely believe it's because of that.
So beautiful, Mel.
100%. And as you were speaking of the temples, it just brought me back to where we started before we hit record, which was the fact that all three of us went to Egypt within a 14-month kind of period, and Mel was first, and then Kirsty, and then myself. Myself, obviously, for those who are listening, know that was earlier this year, and for Mel, early last year. And so I'm curious what impact that had on you. And obviously, that is probably far longer than this podcast could possibly have. But just like some of the little pieces of what it was for you to, I guess, be connected with the temples and with the spaces there, and what you received from that experience.
Mm. Well, my lineage, I am actually Ethiopian. My granddad was quite dark. He was the only black child at his school in New Zealand, and I have always been brought up like with my grandparents being like incredibly proud of our Ethiopian heritage. My foundation is named after my Ethiopian family name, and so when I landed on the lands of Africa, I was just like, I'm home. I am home. I belong. Um, and all of the hype from other people that I wasn't going to be safe and that the men were really horrible and blah, 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 blah. That was not my experience. I just had the best time. I was so highly respected. I felt safe the entire time. And I was with one of my best friends who also has been a mentor and a sister for me. And she's like a little blondie from Finland, and I had like majorly long, like blonde freaking extensions, and so um, and I just loved it. So there was so many things that really tripped me out, like more about like probably accessing different aspects of my soul consciousness. Like I had had very, 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 very vivid dreams about going through like initiations, and swimming across the Nile was one of them, and I had to hold my frequency very high, or you would get eaten by a crocodile. And in my dream, this is like before I was in Egypt, um, my brothers and sisters would come in sunrise, and they would swim the Nile, and some would make it and some would die. And I remember when it was my turn, I filled my pockets with rocks, and I walked along the bottom of the Nile and laid next to a crocodile, and it put its claws into my heart and turned into a blue gem. And I walked out the other side of the Nile in this dream, and there was a woman there, and she was like, "You've activated the Syrian star heart." And so I remember this so clearly, like so freaking clearly. Then when I went to Komombo, which is like one of the first temples I visited, that's what they had, pools there. They had pools there that were filled with crocodiles, and you had to swim across. It was also a temple of medicine, and I just deeply resonated with it. And I think what it activated for me was a deep remembrance and love that I had as a little girl of ancient Egypt. And my devotion to understanding and like reconnecting with the Neteru, the Egyptian cosmic forces, really started to be a clear directive for me and my work from being in those places. And it was just like memory after memory after memory after memory after memory. I was so zonked out from being in these temples, because the temples are actually built as bodies for those cosmic forces. So Dendera, for an example, is the body of Hathor or Hetirt, and so um, you go into the body of this cosmic force, and you follow the pathways, and you're receiving frequencies from their body. And the Egyptian Neteru, which I connect with like a lot, like it's literally in every single work I do. I have found them so available, like so available to connect with. They like I divined a Neteru, there's 64, to come and just give me guidance for today. And it was Akeru, and the divination is a journey, remembering the past in order to know how to act in the future, unconscious memory surfing, resurfacing, and the continuity of time. Like they're super accurate. And I believe that there are these portals all over the world that are connected to who we are on a soul level. And when we enter them, we are, not only is our frequency engaging with the portals and creating harmony because of the frequencies that we hold in our field, but they're also awakening us. And the temples in Egypt are massive portals of awakening. And we need to awaken within this dream. And remember that we are dreaming the dream, we are inside of the dream, and that we're also architects of the dream. And when we awaken and become like the Eye of Ra, for an example, we allow that higher consciousness or this cosmic force to see through us. It empowers itself through us. And then we can begin to dream a new dream. And that is what I loved the most about it, is that I was awake the whole time. And then when I wasn't, I was fast asleep. My God, I slept like 12 hours. As soon as we would get in the car, I'd be out. I'd be like, I'm done. So, yeah. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to go back.
Yeah, so exciting. Funny that when you talked about when you arrived and you felt like you were home, I don't have an African heritage that I'm aware of, but I felt exactly the same. As soon as I landed on those lands, I felt like I'm home. There was just something that in my frequency that just really received everything in the lands. And yeah, such an incredibly powerful place. Beautiful.
So
Oh,
beautiful.
I had goosebumps when you were talking.
Yes, same, big time. It is such an initiation to walk the temples and to walk the land there because, yeah, like you said, for me, it just had so many activations of the connections to all of these different aspects of myself that have walked and devoted there in different ways throughout my soul's experience. And I mean, I personally, I was just talking about it on the weekend with somebody. They were asking about how it was, and I was talking about how, you know, my integration of it, I'm probably not even part way through because of everything that is available through. And I love how you said that the temples are, I guess, a representation or the expression of the body of whichever space it's being devoted to, because there was such a receiving of being within. And the obviously when you said you love that you were awake the whole time, like I am so glad that I went there now, you know, from this perspective, from this capacity to see and receive, because I have done so much travel in my time. I've been to many like sacred sites across the world at times where I didn't even know what it was that I was like. I didn't have the consciousness or the awareness of what was available beyond, wow, this is a great monument.
Yeah.
You know, and I actually remember when I was in Guatemala, it was in 2008, I think, 8 or 9. And I remember walking through some of the sacred sites, and they had pyramid-like structures. And this was the first one that I've got a picture of in my head. I can't actually remember the name of what the location was, but I remember walking around and being so. There was an aspect of me that was so aware of the potency of what was there, and yet the majority of me was just like walking around sort of ignorant to some degree. And when I remember when I had an activation of my like mind connections, like years and years and years and years later, that I was like, oh, and then I had all the memories of what I was receiving in that time. It was probably like 12 years before the moment where I realized what was happening at that time. But to do a trip like that with that level of awareness, it just, it just hit in a totally different way. And yeah, it was really beautiful to hear your experience. And we have talked about our trips to Egypt quite a bit on this podcast because it has been so impactful to both of us. And yeah, so affirming to like what it is that we have lived and created up until this moment. Yeah.
Mm.
I also want to bring it back to, what I think one of the important central pieces of what you've shared, Mel, is this aspect of the polarity. And whether we're awake or, whatever in a moment, if we bring presence to this moment, we are influencing the song lines, we're gifting to the altar because we're allowing source to move through us, and we don't have to travel to exotic places for that actually to be the truth. We can be walking on this land. And when you were speaking actually before about gifting to the altar, I was reflecting upon, because my husband and I have moved to interstate to be with my mother-in-law, and every time I walk on this land right now, I'm gifting it my energy, but it's not my energy. I'm allowing source energy to move through it because this land has been neglected, and it shows. And as a result, because I'm bringing that intention into each moment, I'm witnessing this. I'm witnessing the land shifting. I'm witnessing the land receive me, and because the more that I receive the land. And so I wanted to bring in that piece because people might, but you've brought in so many beautiful things about just being present and therefore giving permission to others, to our children, and all of the things. What I love to come back to is that sense of presence in every moment is so incredibly powerful with ourselves and therefore with everyone else.
Yeah. And just being, like the Māori word for it is kaitiaki, which is like guardian. We're guardians of the lands where we reside, and we are guests here. And so, allowing the frequencies to flow through you and into the land is a sacred duty. And being able to travel and go to Egypt, it's the same thing. We're still allowing those frequencies to flow through us. And I think if anyone's watching and they're wondering, like, what could you do, is the most simple thing that you can do is place your hands on the ground where you live and say thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful. I live in the most amazing freaking property. It's like right out in the country. It's surrounded by Hathor cows, literally, and like thousands of birds. It's super peaceful and quiet. And before I got this property, I snuck out here. I mean, like I wasn't supposed to, but whatevs. I'm a rebel. And I placed my hands on the ground and I was just like, Creator, if this is where you want me to be, then I surrender to your timeline. I love it. It's amazing. Of course, I want it. But if that is not the highest, the best, the most loving place for me to anchor my light, you lead me. And if you want me to be here, like I seek permission from the guardians of this land, from the ancient elements, from the water, the primordial earth. Allow me to be here, please. And if not, that's totally fine. And within 8 minutes, Dad called me, hey, just wanted to let you know you've got the property. I'm like, of course I have. um, but just connecting with our land, and especially a lot of the First Nation tribes of all land have really been so colonized, very degraded, language and culture stripped away. And those energies and frequencies of the original ancestors of the land, the original kaitiaki of the land, they haven't gone anywhere. They don't just disappear. And, when I traveled to Australia for my cousin's wedding, I was in Maroochydore, we were staying in this like really cool place. It was super tropical. I absolutely loved it. Really, really green. And the first thing I did was put my hands on the earth and offer a prayer to the ancestors of the land. And I just felt all these indigenous elders like coming over to my field, and they were just like, thank you so much. No one has offered anything
Mm.
in so long. And I just bawled my eyes out
Mm.
because they it felt so sad, you know, and we have work to do. And that is the priestess path. That is the beauty way, is being of service and making offerings that are genuine and true. And it begins with presence. And it
Mm.
begins with a heart that is filled with gratitude of how lucky we are to live the lives that we live, with fresh water, you know, just the most basic things that so many people in our planet do not have. And to use that prosperity and that abundance and that presence to make offerings and prayer so that the web of life can begin to thread a new one that
Mm.
is more equal. And
Mm.
that is the path of the priestess.
Mm. It's so beautiful. And the piece around the, again, finding the sacredness in all of the land. Like we did obviously speak about Egypt and the specialness of that experience, and yet our backyards are so sacred, to have the space to be on the land, to be connected. And I love that you have woven in those pieces into this conversation and into your experience. And when you talked about Maroochydore, you know, that particular area is so taken from because it's a holiday destination. You know, people come and they take what they want as far as the experience of being that type of a space, and to come in and bring that level of presence and connection. I think it's so beautiful, and I totally feel the depletion of those places in that way, and to come and offer something so simple. You know, it is really not a difficult or challenging thing for us to touch into the gratitude of the place and the space in which we reside and the different places that we connect. And I love that you've woven that in, because it is the beauty way. And you know, one of the things that we spoke about, that we have spoken about on this podcast so many times, is that is the beauty way, to come into recognition of the sacred and in the mundane, in the places where it's seemingly not sacred, or that it's just what it is, and that we get to bring in that level of connection and devotion to what is. And yeah, I really love that you brought that through.
I would love to offer a quote from one of my teachers. Her name's Isis Andrea. And she said, offering consciousness is the remedy for the extractive mind.
Mm.
Offering consciousness is the remedy for the extractive mind.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I feel like there's such a, we've talked about this, I can't remember exactly what the relevance was in the previous conversation, but and I'll just leave whatever it was connected to before, because I can't recall, but being in that level of presence and consciousness can be the antidote to millions that aren't, because that is the power of the presence and the consciousness that we bring to things. And yeah, like your example of you know, touching the land and connecting in Maroochydore, and the response that you received, like it feels like such a cycling of what you shared about how you feel in your connection and in your, you know, ceremony, and how you feel so topped up. It's almost like the land got to receive that same level of topping up through your acknowledgement of it, you know. And we talk a lot about the gift it is to be witnessed. And I think we are so often seeking to be witnessed, but how often are we presencing and witnessing? And by taking our hands onto the ground in our backyards or where we're visiting or what have you, is such a witnessing and a presencing and a gifting of gratitude. And yeah, it's really beautiful to receive that. Thank you so
And
much.
I'll share with you like a cute little story about that. At the time, I was like deep into the Sophia Code, and in that moment, at at that time, I was reading the chapter of Kuan Yin, and Maha Avatar Babaji, and it felt a deep connection to her, and that kind of compassion and love and water. I had offered water to the land, and they were so grateful, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to give you a gift." And I was fizzing. I was looking fucking everywhere for this gift. I don't know what I thought it would be, but on the very last day, we were traveling back to Brisbane to fly, and I was with my siblings and their husbands, and we were like waiting for one of them. They were like way behind us in the car, and we pulled up to this like shack village hillbilly roadside op shop thing. And I was like, I'm gonna go in here. And I walked around, there was like nothing amazing, and then just as I left the the door, and I kind of was like, oh, like, okay, I'm literally about to fly out. I look over, and here is a statue of Kuan Yin with a little ceramic kind of like box jewelry thing with a dragon on it. And I was just like, excuse me, can you open the cabinet? Those are mine. And literally, one was $14, and my birthday's the 14th. And the other one was like 8, and 8 was like my lucky number. And I was just like, oh, of course. And I remember being so excited, and I got back in the car, and my sister was in the back with her husband. They were like quite dusty. And I was like, oh my God, I've got Kuan Yin and Maha Avatar Babaji. And they were like, cool. Who the fuck is that? Like, obviously, there are ascended master mentors who are giving thanks and gratitude to me for offering water to the land. And Jade's just like, yeah, put it in your bag, babe. Like, okay. But I will never forget that. It was so special, and I was like absolutely thrilled to bits. I genuinely believe that like devotion is rewarded. They could be rewarded with beautiful food and amazing friendships and great lovers and prosperity and health, with peace, with a peaceful heart, with um, healing, and it can also be like gifts and money and all the other things that our human self desires. And I think probably things like that, stories like that, which I have like thousands of, by the way. There's just so many things that have happened like that, have really kept me in a joyful way, like in a really innocent way, in a really childlike way, wanting to connect, wanting to devote, because nothing bad has ever come from it. Only really good things. And it doesn't mean that I'm exempt from experiencing deep pain like, I have in the last 6 months. But I've been able to, allow myself to go through that really deep ocean, and now return back to the space where I'm like, there's still going to be joy here. Um, and I think that keeps calling me back to the altar as well.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Thank you so much, Mel, today. Thank you for your presence, your authenticity, and for your love. It just oozes out of you, the love. And I'm really grateful to have spent this time with you today. So thank you for joining us on the Beauty Way. It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been so beautiful to have you. And I feel like this episode is going to be such a inspiration for people to reconnect, even just to the gratitude, to recognizing what we receive on a daily basis without doing anything, and to actually come into consciousness around that and offer gratitude for the food that we eat and the place that we live and all of the things. Like, I feel like what you've shared and expressed today is a really good reminder of how simple it can be to be in devotion and in conscious connection with our life and our experiences. It's been a real gift and a joy to receive you today. Thank you, honey.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we started at 10:10 and now we're finishing at 11:10. How perfect is that? So thanks everyone. We'll see you soon.